Our ability to connect people to each other is the most valuable thing any of us can do. And people will pay for it. And they will pay increasingly a premium for it.
Hey, what's up, friends? Grant Baldwin here. Welcome back to the Speaker Lab podcast. Today, chatting with my friend Gina Bianchini, and excited for this conversation. The CEO, founder of Mighty Networks, and is a wizard whenever it comes to all things building community. Gina, welcome. How are you today?
I am fantastic. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this since you asked me, and I'm just stoked.
Now you are a big wig in the world of tech and the Silicon Valley stuff. We were talking a little bit beforehand. Are you doing much speaking? Like, how does speaking fit into your role? We're going to talk a lot about like Mighty and like how speakers can be building community, but for you as a CEO, and like that is a busy world that you live in, are you doing much speaking? How do you kind of view speaking from a CEO position?
Yeah, so I have just done a fair amount, and my speaking has been everything from giving a talk at multiple conferences to a keynote on a larger stage to last week I just was an MC for 3 days for a 3,000 person AI conference in Las Vegas. There were like 300 companies presenting. So I've kind of been running the gamut of speaking recently. And, you know, I would say I go through waves. It depends on if I'm in sort of building mode, if I'm in launch mode, if I'm in, hey, I want to just go meet a bunch of really cool people mode. I've done some paid speaking, and I've done other things that are, you know, in support of Mighty and talking about community. So it's sort of run the gamut.
Does most of the speaking that you do, does it fall under the umbrella of I am going to represent my company, Mighty Networks, or is it going where you're going on behalf of just yourself? Or how do you kind of view speaking?
I've done both. And I would say, you know, for the most part, I want to go and represent Mighty. Mm-hmm. Now, I think most people kind of can imagine nobody's actually interested in hearing me give a commercial for Mighty Networks. Maybe this is the exception. So I talk about and have a lot of expertise in topics related to building communities and the things that Mighty does, without it being necessarily a commercial about Mighty. And what that's led to is other people wanting a speaker or wanting an MC or wanting somebody to basically show up and offer, you know, a point of view on where the world is going with technology. What is the impact of AI on human beings and real relationships, and where is this all going to intersect with community? So those are the kinds of things that I have done. It definitely started with how do I support Mighty, and it's gotten a little bit bigger than that.
Whenever you get inquiries or invites to go speak at something, what are the criteria you kind of run through in your mind to determine? Because you mentioned like emceeing a 3,000 person event on AI. Like if you haven't done MC stuff before, talking to the general audience here, it's a lot of work. You know, you think like, oh, you just, you know, you do a little dog and pony show and intro this person and outro that person. It's a crap load of work, and you got to be on your game. You're kind of the ringmaster for what typically is like a couple days of an event. Yeah. So it's a major commitment for something like that. So, you know, whether it's that event or whatever, like what's the criteria you use to be like, yeah, that seems worthwhile for me to go do?
Yeah. So, number one, it has increasingly been people who are running events on Mighty Networks. So if somebody's going to like run an event on a Mighty Network and it's meeting up in person, this was an event I did in February for Baby Bathwater Institute. And I wanted to see my product in the wild being used for this event. And then the fact that I could talk about community at a community event, that just was absolutely spot on bullseye in terms of strategy and priority. Yeah. And then another event, the other two events I did in the fall were both a similar kind of thing. The AI conference was actually one I had to think about. And, you know, number one, if you're emceeing, it's not necessarily like you're going on stage to, you know, give your own point of view on things.
Yep.
the reason I ended up doing that one was, number one, I was going to see a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
And number two, I wanted to learn about an event at that scale and really understand the programming and how the whole thing kind of worked behind the scenes. And then also, I thought I would learn something interesting that I wouldn't have otherwise picked up on just from social media or just from reading alone.
Yeah.
Now, my takeaway from that, I would say, is relevant to every creator, every speaker, anybody that is sort of putting themselves out there today, which is, oh my God, the world is so overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
They're overwhelmed. It's overwhelming. And the more that each of us have kind of that one word that they can, that we can connect to, but also other people can connect to, that is so important. And being able to go really deep with people is also really important in a world where, a 20-minute talk or a panel or any of these things that, used to be something that made a lot of sense might just not be enough, enough of a footprint, enough of a, time and frequency to be able to get a message across. So I just think this is a really interesting moment. And I think that overwhelm is only going to get more and more the case, which is also why I think I'm getting even more specific that I'm not necessarily just doing speaking things for what I think I can get from, being out there and sharing a message or offering to educate and a point of view, but also if it like going to something where I wouldn't even be on this stage, I've got to learn something from that experience that is relevant to what I am working on today or over the next 90 days.
Yeah, I want to call out one thing that you mentioned there that is, I think, super helpful and valuable for speakers in general is that oftentimes when we consider going to speak at something it's oftentimes just very transactionally. I'm going to get a check or I'm not going to get a check, and how much is that check and how many zeros and commas are there going to be to make it worthwhile for me to put on pants and leave my house. But in your case, you mentioned like, hey, here's an event that like I would be interested in anyway. I get to see some friends from, maybe it's in a city that I want to visit or a place I want to visit, or I have other, personal or professional, things I want to do. It may also be like in your case, you described, I may not be like a keynote or a workshop or whatever, but I'm on the main stage a lot. I'm the most common face of an event as an MC. So there's a certain amount of like credibility that's associated with that for attendees of like, all right, they vetted her and put her up here a lot. So she must know what she's talking about.
I got more attention being an MC than I was ever going to get being on a panel or even giving a 20-minute talk.
Yeah. And
so I think one of the things that is a really interesting, I think, lesson I took away just as a speaker is looking at this moment in a world where everybody is overwhelmed and it's kind of overwhelming. Sheer time matters more than anything else. And being able to leave your audience with one thing or two things that then it is a part of a larger portfolio of touch points with, either current fans and followers or future fans and followers is so incredibly important.
Now we've touched on a little bit Mighty Networks, the company that you are CEO, founder of. For those that aren't familiar, what is Mighty Networks?
Yeah, very simply, Mighty is a community platform. And, we think about ourselves as a modern community platform, which means that you can bring people together, offer not just a community, but online courses, challenges, events, both virtual and in person. And what we do differently than anything else out there is we're really invested in how are people meeting and building relationships with each other. So specifically, how can we use software and, yes, AI to play the role of amazing host, so you're not just bringing people in and that either you have to, as the community manager, just grind it out with like, hey guys, what do you think? Or sit there and be like, oh my God, nobody's talking. Or I have to produce a bunch of content. But instead, what's different about Mighty is it may be about I really think about like content translates to community as an app, as a framework
Mm-hmm.
that people then want to go apply in their real life.
Is
So
Go ahead.
building those relationships is absolutely critical to people navigating a moment or a transition together with your framework or with your content.
Is it purely like like building community in like an online setting?
Both. So one of the things that we have and we built because of this people magic, as we call it, is the ability to see members near you, the ability to see and organize members near you. And so that physical location has made it so that in-person events is really a great combination with what we do and how we do it. But also, it really represents a modern community, which is if we're doing our jobs right as organizers, or as we call them, hosts,
Yeah.
it's really about how are you connecting people to each other so that they can actually navigate their hopes and dreams and fears and misconceptions and all the things that they want to go do together. And so, especially for speakers, as you think about taking your content and your point of view and translating it even more deeply into people's lives, there's no better way to do it than a community.
So why, I guess, expand on that a little bit in terms of like, why should speakers be thinking more about building community? Because most speakers, we for better or worse, it can be kind of a short-sighted transactional approach to business. Like I booked a gig, I went and I did the gig, and I'm one of, oftentimes a bunch of speakers, and my session ended, my talk ended, they're all going to other sessions. Maybe a couple of them are thinking about my thing, and it just, I'm headed to the airport, on to I got my check, and it cleared, and I'm on to the next thing. But it is very important to be thinking about, like, how do I take this relationship that I just nurtured with these people from the stage? How do I take it beyond the stage?
That's
and
right.
so why should speakers be thinking more about building community versus just doing a gig?
Well, if you will indulge me, I'm going to answer this in two ways. So let me first start
I will
with,
indulge you. Okay,
okay,
that's allowed. Okay, good.
so part one is, okay, what are people getting from communities? Like, why would anybody join your community, whether you are a speaker or whether you are, somebody who's never spoken on a stage before in your life? Well, there are three things that a community is best in the world at doing. Number one, it is best in the world at helping people navigate a rapidly changing world. So I don't know about you, but I'm looking around and there's a lot of things changing in the world, whether it's technology, whether it's, what's going to happen to our jobs. Like, are we about to be in a recession? What's happening in the world? Like a changing world order, like all the things. And we have infinite options out in the world. And we have all of these things that are just like kind of coming at us. Well, a community is the single most effective way to navigate a rapidly changing world. So people join community because they're like, oh my God, Grant, help. Like, here's what I'm navigating. What are you navigating? And this community brought us together because we have this shared goal, or we have this shared transition that we're navigating together, whatever. So community makes sense of a rapidly changing world. The second thing that community is absolutely phenomenal at doing is helping people build new practices or change habits. So if you try to do something like that on your own, you're going to be using up all of your willpower. And there's some pretty clear ways where it's like, no, it's like by the end of the day, if you've been like using up all of your willpower, you're like, okay, I want that ice cream. And you probably will eat it unless you have even more willpower.
Ice cream's delicious. There's nothing wrong with it.
I know. Community lets you draft behind the things that we actually care about, like social relationships. So if everybody's doing something, if no one at a party is drinking, it's a lot easier to not drink than if you're at a party and everybody is drinking except you. So building new practices, changing habits, community is best in the world at that. The example I love to give is I was in a community for a while until I actually built it into a habit where I was like trying to work out every single day. And I'd like wake up and I'd be so tired. I'd look at my phone and I'd look at all of the notifications, and it was like, I can't believe how cold it is outside, and people taking pictures and basically sitting there saying, but I did it. And so guess what I did? I got really good at getting up, putting on my clothes, and going outside and walking around, sometimes running around. So it's just absolutely phenomenal for that. And then finally, because it's so good at helping people navigate a rapidly changing world and build new practices and habits, a community is absolutely best in the world at helping people achieve results and transformation that they can't get on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing about results and transformation that you can't get on your own is that people pay for it and they pay attention to what they pay for. So it turns out you can actually build a really valuable, really profitable community of people coming together to navigate the world, coming together to build new practices and new habits, and coming together to ultimately achieve results and transformation they can't get on their own. Now, in none of those things did I say people are showing up to pay for your content.
Yeah.
They are showing up for each other. Now, if you are a speaker, what are you probably good at? You are probably good at crafting a reason for people to pay attention to you. Crafting something that your audience is going to actually care about. Crafting something that those event organizers are actually going to pay you money to come and talk to their audience about. Which means that it's a natural way to go from hear my talk, let me invite you into my community, and then let me introduce you to all of the other people who are on this path and who are taking these concepts and applying them in their lives. Now, that was one way to talk about it. Now let me talk about it from a totally different way, which is communities are the absolute perfect business. Especially like being a speaker is fantastic, but you got to go places and you got to do things and you're getting paid for showing up, getting on stage, delivering your message, hopefully tailoring it or customizing it to that event. And then you get off the stage and like, you better have a lot of other events to make this business work.
Right.
With a community, when it is set up correctly, and we, by the way, helped you do that at Mighty Hours. When you set it up correctly, it essentially runs itself. The hardest thing about building a community is making sure that you've really tapped into a transition that people have and are navigating so that they actually want to build relationships with each other. So what does that actually create in terms of a business? Well, number one, people pay attention to what they pay for, and they pay a lot of money for results and transformation in their lives. So on average, a Mighty network today that is charging $48 a month or over $570 a year. And the retention is phenomenal. And the retention is phenomenal because we've really invested in, yes, we'll make your content look amazing, but we've really invested in how do your fans and followers become friends with each other.
Right.
And so now, and by the way, this is only going to get more and more sophisticated as the things that are available for us, the tools that and the foundational tools that we're now able to build applications on top of to make that relationship and the nurturing of the relationships between your members so easy, super, super great. The other thing is that when you have a community and you can bring a community to social media, you can bring a community to an email list, you can bring a community to all of these things, you're also going to be a better draw for people who want you to come and speak, right? Because you can promote things to your community. I'll give you an example in a second. You can get your community members to join you at an event. You become a much more valuable speaker if you are bringing people with you whose lives that you've changed. What else does it do? Well, it gives you incredible stories. So one of my favorite examples of a Mighty network, and he's turned it into a very healthy speaking business, is a guy named Martinez Evans, and something called the Slow AF Run Club is what he started. And he started blogging at an account 300 pounds and running. So he is the leader of back of the pack runners.
Okay.
That is why it is called Slow AF. Martinez has an incredible story, and building his own community allowed him to, number one, navigate COVID, because what he realized was, wait a second, I could actually hold virtual races as, again, navigating a dizzying, rapidly changing world together.
Right.
So he was able to build a 6-figure business running virtual races that he got the idea of collaborating with his community. Second, he got a book deal. He got a book deal with a Healthy Advance because of his community, because they knew people were going to buy it. Number 3, he launched a speaking business because he came from an incredibly challenging background and overcame so much to launch the Slow AF Run Club, build an incredible business, write a book that sold 50,000 copies in its first 6 months, and all because of a community. And guess what else? He could go do all of these things because he wasn't having to write an email newsletter every single week. Not to knock newsletters. Newsletters are great, but they're very one-dimensional. And what we're entering is a world where value is going to be created by other people and who you can bring together and what experiences that you can offer them, not what's written on a page.
Right. So if I'm a speaker, I'm going like, okay, I'm picking up what you're laying down.
And so
I know,
you are a speaker. I love it.
So all right, if I'm going, all right, I'm buying what you're selling. I'm intrigued by this because there's a lot of speakers I've met who go, dang, it took me years to realize the importance of building an audience, building a community. And I've spoken to tens of thousands of people, but I haven't really built an email list. I haven't really built a community. I haven't done anything with it. And now I'm realizing the error of my ways and I want to get started with this. And so if I'm going, okay, I'm interested in this and I've got, gigs coming up in the next few weeks, what are like the practical steps that we need to be doing to translate a speaking gig with, 100 or hundreds of people in an audience to now, how does that actually how do I get them from their butts in the seats to their butt in the seat virtually and connecting with them in an online community?
Right. So here's the good news. The good news is, first of all, you can build a really successful community with just 30 people up front. So, we talk about email newsletters and it's like, oh, well, I have to get 300 people on my email newsletter. Well, the good news about a community is like, when you bring the right 30 people together, that's all you need. Like, and you now have the core founding experience that you would need to be able to start to bring more people into that community. So here's the beautiful thing as well, which is a community is about your members. It's not necessarily about you. So the only thing you really need to do when you're starting a community is really pinpoint what is a transition, because people who are going through transitions are the most motivated. So they're the most motivated to join new things. They're the most motivated to contribute. They're the most motivated to bring more people in and share it word of mouth. So the first thing I would ask anybody is, what is a transition that you talk about or talk around that you people are motivated to navigate? Yeah. So for example, Grant, the reason why you've created such a successful podcast and business and coaching world is because people want to go from being not a speaker to being a paid speaker. Right. Or if they're a paid speaker and they've gotten a couple paid speaking gigs under their belt, they were like, okay, where do I level up? Those are both transitions. So every speaker implicitly has transitions that they are talking to. So pick one, and pick one that you know pretty well, and pick one that you know people are going to get excited about. And then literally there are 9 steps. Pick a transition. understand the benefits or the things that people want at the end of that transition. Like, what does it look like to successfully navigate that transition, or what I like to call your best year ever? And so how do you help people achieve their best year ever? That comes together in your pitch. So I bring people together that are going through this transition to have their best year ever, defined as X, Y, or Z. That then becomes your big purpose. Like, that's what you do. And then running a community is the easiest thing in the world. All you need is that, like, what is the transition and what's their best year ever? And then monthly themes, a weekly calendar, and daily polls and questions, or frequent polls and questions, all of which can be organized in advance. So monthly themes, why? Why monthly themes? Well, it's pretty simple. People love novelty. And so what you have with monthly themes is a theme for that month. And that might be a theme like getting energy, or a theme like how do you choose your price, or a theme of how do you organize 12 months of speaking opportunities, or whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. The beautiful thing is you want a topic that people can contribute their stories, their ideas, and their experiences. This is not about advice. Advice shuts a community down, and sharing stories, experiences, and ideas is what expands it and has more people contributing. And now all of a sudden you've got that flywheel, you've got that engagement.
Yeah.
And then what's beautiful is, like, when you start to sort of peter out of, like, okay, we've talked about organizing our 12-month calendar or events a lot, you have the novelty of the next month's theme.
Right.
So that's what introduces novelty. Then the weekly calendar is what introduces habit. And the goal with the weekly calendar is just like two things that you do. And the key thing is that you do them at the same time on the same day every week. So, for example, that might be Tuesday morning office hours, and Friday is a community roundup that you send out as an email notification. The key thing is that it happens at the same time, and now all of a sudden, whether or not your members are coming back every single day or not coming back every single day, Tuesday mornings, they look at their calendar and they're like, oh my God, it's Tuesday morning. Of course I'm going to have our live office hours. Or Friday, you get that community roundup every week, and it's like, oh yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
So that, and then, by the way, what's beautiful is people tend to come back a lot more than 2 times a week. And then the third is daily polls and questions. And you can set them up in advance. And actually the questions are not to share knowledge or get information. It's literally to get people talking to each other. So what happens when you're facilitating, a talk and there's the Q&A, it's people are actually like listening and hearing each other's stories and talking to each other. So what we found is that polls and questions are absolutely phenomenal when they follow a very specific formula that we've like built into Mighty Networks. When they follow a very specific formula, what's great is that everybody can share their stories and experiences in these really quick, thoughtful ways that then have people coming back and meeting and building relationships with each other. Because ultimately what you are aiming for is how your members are meeting and building relationships with each other, because they're all on the same path. Yeah. And you've set up enough scaffolding that they can actually take it and run with it. So that's it. Like, that's all you have to do. Now, I get a lot of questions at this point, but aren't they there for my content? No, your content is more work. You are there to take your content and translate it into things for people to do, or quests that people can go on together. That's what they're hungry for. That's what they're there for. And then what's great for you as a speaker is, number one, you're going to meet a bunch of cool people. Yeah. You're going to have an endless supply of new stories. You're going to have an endless supply of inspiration and energy, so that as you are going and interviewing with different events that you would be speaking at, you have really fresh, up to the moment applications of what you talk about and the impact that you're able to have in people's lives. Now imagine all of that on your speaker's page, or what you are able to use in your marketing.
When do you decide whether a community should be paid or free?
All right. So I'm glad you asked this question because I am a big believer, for the most part, in paid communities. People have been paying for communities since the dawn of time. And we see this really consistently across literally a million communities at this point. People pay attention to what they pay for.
Yeah.
Which means you're going to have a more engaged community if you charge for it. You will be clearer in why it exists and your motivation to make it awesome, which again is really, it's so much easier to make it awesome than most people think. Additionally, people are already paying for other things, and this is a replacement for how they're navigating. Like, what else are they paying for to navigate a transition? The other beautiful thing about it is, even if you're like, oh, Gina, I met some guy who was like, I love movies. I'm going to do, I have a newsletter about people watching movies together. And so I want a community, but I don't want to charge for it. I don't want to charge for it, or I don't need to make money from it. Well, and I was like, but imagine everybody is investing in it. They're investing with their time, their energy, and their money. Well, guess what? You might not need the money, but imagine you took the money you generated from it and opened your own film festival where everybody could meet in person.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so easy to think about charging for communities as transactional, and it's the opposite. When people invest their money, they invest their time. When they invest their time, they can build relationships. They can change their habits. They can change their and build new practices. And ultimately, they build friendships and they build identity. And when people have identity, that is the ultimate. It's the ultimate value we can bring to the people around us.
Yeah.
So, can you do a free challenge? Sure, go for it. Can you offer a free course? Can you have a free live event? Could you have a free podcast? Absolutely. When it comes to the community itself, there is significant value in creating something that is paid, that people take seriously. They don't have to be serious, but like that they take it seriously, because that's where people are going to get the best results. And that's like, we don't need more free shit to do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is probably a family podcast.
You're good.
We don't need more stuff to do. We need high quality stuff that has curation and lightweight structure that helps us achieve the results and transformation that we want to have in the world.
Right. So it seems like there is, when we talk about like, especially monetizing community, because there are people like you mentioned who are going like, yes, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart, which is fair. And there's also the majority of us are going like, yes, but also I like to eat and live indoors, and
Right.
therefore I like to get paid for the value that I'm providing. And if I'm hosting the party and I'm bringing a lot of people together around some central theme or topic, I would like to get paid for that. So
Yeah.
is it, I don't want to like dumb it down or water it down, but like, are we talking like a glorified Facebook group here, or how much additional content resources should be there? Because I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, where oftentimes we think within a community we have to put so much stuff in there, and all of a sudden it becomes bloated, where it's like, I don't need all this crap, and it's counterintuitive. But oftentimes the simpler, the more basic, the more almost dumbed down it is, the more people are like, yeah, I'd sign up for that.
So I would say yes and.
Yeah.
So it's not about dumbing it down.
Right.
It's about making it intentional. So going back to like, people are overwhelmed, but they still have results that they want to get. They still want to meet people. They still want to have a little bit of lightweight structure, so meeting people is easy. Those things are hard in a Facebook group. So a Facebook group was built for a college club, and they have never really invested in Facebook groups. How do I know this? I have had a front row seat to Facebook groups since the very beginning of Facebook. And so just you need to think about a Facebook group or even Discord or just chat as just like apples and oranges to what we're talking about. But that does not mean that you don't want to create something that is just down to its essence. And it's just like the essence is, how are you helping people meet each other and build relationships? And I love saying it like this, but if you're, brass tacks, you're like, do you really need to call it a quest, Gina? And I'm like, yes, I do. But like, how do you help people go on quests together? How do you help them have a shared language? Harder to do in Facebook groups, but impossible to do if you are just focused on your content, because then it's like, well, wait a second, how do I meet and build relationships with each other such that I can apply your content to my life? And it's just, if you have grown up thinking that your value is the content that you produce, or the course that you offer, or the keynote that you give, or the workshop that you provide, it's sometimes hard to make that shift to the most valuable parts of a workshop, for example, aren't the times that you're talking. It's when you've given people enough information that they can then go off in a small group and figure out how to apply it in their lives.
Right, right.
And so that's how I would answer the question. It's not about dumbing it down. It's about getting to its essence. And it's that flip that you got to make to, how do I give people just enough to be able to go and apply my concepts and the things that I've learned in my life, navigating the transitions that I've navigated, to be able to offer them a path to the fastest results and transformation that they can get.
You mentioned even just recently, like, so you were emceeing a AI conference, and you touched on earlier that obviously like AI is top of mind for most of us as entrepreneurs, and how does this affect things and change things? Like, in addition to AI, or how AI fits in, like, what are like trends that you're seeing within communities, online or offline, that like, if you're online, if you're a entrepreneur, creator, speaker, like, you got to be paying attention to these things right now?
Yeah. So, I would describe the first wave of things that have captured creators' imagination as it relates to AI are, how do I replicate myself? So digital twins. How do I use AI to write my weekly newsletter, or write my social media posts? So and by the way, those are both very popular amongst the creators that are on Mighty. Here's the problem with that, though, is number one, when you use AI in those ways, you are essentially getting what is nicely called in many respects a shitty first draft.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, it's just slop. And if you just are like, oh, but I'm going to put that out. The problem is that even if you're still getting attention today because you've spent a lot of time and effort building an audience, the amount of impact you are going to get when you are just putting things out there that are like your digital twin,
Yeah.
In the best of cases. Now, again, there's absolutely like great uses for digital twins. Yay. But they are not the holy grail. They're not the answer to the way that creators can use AI as effectively as possible. And then just producing mounds and mounds of content, it's just, you're not really thinking about at that point your audience or people who are overwhelmed and like the world is overwhelming and people are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So the approach that we've taken, again, having a lot of experience in Silicon Valley and watching, well, where are the most valuable businesses? Where have they been created? Well, guess what? They're not in content. They're in networks. There is a reason we call Mighty networks.
Yeah.
Because the value any of us are building in our businesses, and the most defensible moat any of us are building in our businesses isn't the size of our audience. It's the quality of the network that we are building between people that we have introduced to each other.
Yeah.
And the value of the activities that we have laid out for them to be able to go and do together. Right. And so for us at Mighty, and we call it people magic because when I called it a, like, how do you create a network effect? Everybody was like, their eyes glazed over. I was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to call it that. So I'm like people magic, and people are like, oh my God, that's so cool. I love people magic. That sounds fun. And so what we've done is we are using AI to play the role of a co-host. So instead of that feeling of like, oh, communities are so much work, I'm going to have, oh my God, if I charge for a community, I'm going to have to like have all this content, which is, again, everybody's like, oh my God. Like, it was like this old New Yorker joke where people were like just comparing how many unread New Yorkers that they would have, and like the stacks would get bigger and bigger and bigger. Don't try to win on content.
Yeah.
Win on results and transformation that you are able to get people because of the environment that you create. And certainly the thing that we are hanging our hat on at Mighty Networks is we are going to help you do that with intelligence and art and elegance, so that the people who are meeting each other, they're meeting each other because somebody introduced them.
Yeah.
And that is a very different way of thinking about AI. And then for any of us who are creators, one of the most fascinating things to think about, in my opinion, is the fact that, as AI continues to do things like cure disease, so we're all living longer and healthier, and, makes things that used to take a lot of time not have to take a lot of time work-wise, both for professional as well as for more manual labor. We're going to all have a lot more time. And my favorite one is like supersonic flight. We're all going to have supersonic flight so we can get anywhere in like minutes or a couple hours that, today takes us hours or days. If you want to build a business that is future-proof, build one that brings people together. Build one that brings people together.
And I think go ahead. No, I cut you off. My bad.
That's okay.
No, what I want to say was like, I was kind of sitting here reflecting on how you and I got connected was in a community, and an in-person community, right? And it was some mutual friends who were hosting, like, hey, we're thinking about getting a group of people together in Atlanta. And my guess is like, we kind of ran in similar circles over the years, but getting together in person changed the dynamic of relationships and friendships. And it is, the guys that hosted the party, so to speak, the things that we've met and hung out at, it's not like everyone came to see them. It's not like everyone came to, they have some wisdom and insights from on high they're going to share on the scrolls with the rest of us. It really just kind of like, again, they legit hosted the party, and a bunch of really smart, good people showed up together. And
Correct.
That's how, we got to this point today with you and I, is because of a community.
Well, and I'll take it one step further, which is you, and we don't have to tell the story here, but it's because you told me a story that sparked an idea that I am absolutely going to build within the year. And
I don't. What is the story? I don't remember this.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you later. But like, the point is, when people share stories, when they are in community with other people, that's where the power comes from. Not like, you gave me an idea that you probably don't even realize that you gave me.
I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
I know, that's what's so fun about it. And once I build it, I'm coming back and I'm going to show it to you.
Circle of life.
And Grant's like, oh my God, I don't understand. But I'm like, I've been so excited about this because I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't even realize the impact that you have with people when you share your stories, when you share your experiences, when you share your ideas. And by the way, think about it. It's like when we were talking right at the beginning of this podcast, you were like, who did you give credit to? For us meeting, you gave credit to Sean and Mo. Like, you gave credit to the people that organize. I passionately believe the skill of the 21st century is hosting. Whether that is hosting a dinner party, whether that is hosting a barbecue, whether that is hosting a workshop, whether that is hosting a mastermind, whether that's hosting an event, whether that's hosting a podcast. Hosting and making it comfortable for people who are otherwise spending more and more of our time isolated is going to be the most valuable skill in an age of AI, and where technology is getting smarter and better at how to take more and more of our time and attention. What becomes valuable in those moments, because software will always be synthetic, will always be synthetic versions of people, are the people that can bring together a digital or real life community. And it's a little counterintuitive, but it is absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's absolutely right.
That's good.
Our ability to connect people to each other is the most valuable thing any of us can do. And people will pay for it. And they will pay increasingly a premium for it.
That's good. Good stuff. Miss Gina, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been super fun, super insightful. If people want to find out more about you, check out Mighty. Where can we find you online?
Gina B on X, G Bianchini on LinkedIn, and Mighty Networks. We've got an about page.
Had a girl.
So,
okay.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Thanks for the time,
All right.
Gina. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.